Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And the news of the day is what the fuck was that? And I'm referring to the presidential debate. It is fascinating that in my lifetime, a word and its definition would cease to exist. And that word's presidential, because the thing that was on the stage interrupting Joe Biden, interrupting the moderator, the person who's supposed to be president of the United States, killed the word presidential. It's dead now. It's on the ground. It has been excised from the dictionary, thanks to him. For the current example, there is no presidential. That is for demeanor, for anything, that is gone. I don't have too long. I actually recorded a 40-minute video just now, then I realized I forgot a few things, and you know what? Screw it. Let's redo it. But I don't want to go 40 minutes because I went off at a tangent upon the Supreme Court and what we could lose in the Supreme Court. I will try to dedicate a video for that because that deserves a conversation, not only from the late lamented loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg to what we have now with Judge Amy. But that aside, I echo the words of a lot of people that I've heard tonight that the win or lose, the one who lost was the United States of America. In the case of Joe Biden, I would say he held his own, and I think he did better than expected. I was had a little trepidation of him going in because Donald Trump is a fucking Tasmanian devil. He's an orange vortex. That because he doesn't exist in a world of any form of consequence, that therefore no one says no to him, so he can do whatever the fuck he wants, and no one stops him. I postulated what it means to have adult maturity. How do you attain this maturity? Is it just something that's supposed to happen with age and that's automatic? Or is it the long process of dealing with consequence, dealing with the rights and wrongs, dealing with when you are told no, you can't do something, and if you did do something that you were not told to do, you got punished, you got a consequence that happens. And what if someone who is wealthy and privileged when he was a young little pissant who has no consequence leveled on him, that is there any kind of adversity that is facing, like grades or whatever, pay someone else to do the shit for them and then give them the credit. And then no one really tells you no except for Big Daddy. He can tell you no, so that's why you respect and fear him, but say nothing about your mother, but be that as it may. In over 70 plus years of life, exhibiting the same immature, self-absorbed impulse control problems that we have seen for decades. We thought it was adorable, as a representation of the go-go 80s of this wealthy or just rich guy. I don't even know if we can call him wealthy. This rich guy who, does all the extravagant shit, goes out with the extravagant women, go on the yachts and so forth. Gee, I want to be rich like that. Sit on gold toilets to shit. Yeah. So what if he does not have adult maturity because he has no real consequences that ever been levied onto him? That's why we hear a 70-year-old plus man talking about, it's not fair. They're not treating me fair. At this presidential debate, He exhibited behavior that you would scold and punish your child if they acted like this in front of others, much less in front of you. And some of y'all still support him and condone it. So, in terms of win or lose of the actual two contestants of this presidential debate, Biden won. He won because he looked like a serious fucking adult who actually cared and gave a damn about the job, about the office, that the orange Tasmanian devil doesn't really give a shit about, that is only there to gain the benefits. There are any benefits, to gain as much benefits for himself as humanly possible, which, given the recent tax revelations, maybe the benefit is just staying out of jail or making sure he doesn't have to pay. But, whatever. I don't know what too much of actual policy discussions actually landed in any of this. It is whatever serious topic that came up, Trump and his desperate flailing and immaturity, takes center stage at all human cost. So, what do we go from any topic that does not just like end up as like some sort of campaign slogan or buzzword, or he's not gonna do this, he's not gonna do that, I gotta do this, I do that. Like Joe Biden, don't like Joe Biden, vote for him, don't vote for him, vote for Trump, whatever. But in the moment where he says, man, could you just shut up? He was speaking for all of us in that moment. Because I think even Trump supporters, no matter how much you're going to love your guy, you gotta think of those moments. It's like, Jesus Christ, you know what? I'm gonna vote for you, but could you just stop? Really, just stop it. Because the illusion of the United States is fleeing here while he's in office. Whatever venerated respect and patriotism you felt of the United States and its office of President of the United States, the near deification that many of our presidents has been given over the years, depending upon you looking through their lives, and then they're slaveholders and they're assholes, but be that as it may, people still, venerate our founding fathers and our early presidents and so forth, and that, treat them as near demigods. Well, Trump is shattering that illusion because he is certainly no demigod. He uses the office for his own benefit, not for the benefit of others. In my very first video on YouTube, I did the hypothesis of whether or not Donald Trump was a racist or a white supremacist. And my theory was he wasn't racist, because I laid out at least 20 different accounts of from mild to direct racism that he has done over the long years. And I didn't quite say he was a white supremacist because of the fact that he doesn't care about white folk. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. He's a Trump supremacist. As long as he gets ahead, as long as he's on top, as long as he's safe, fat, and happy, and it's all good. That extends to his children, but since his children work for him, it goes back to him. Speaking of white supremacists, that was a really telling question that was out there. When Chris Wallace says, "Will you commit to condemning white supremacists?" And first he, does his flail about, what about Antifa? What about I pay attention more to the groups on the left. They're the ones who are the problems. But Chris Wallace, in a rare moment of him actually pressing Trump, presses him, and he says, "Fine, I will. Fine. Just tell me who." And Biden goes, how about the Proud Boys? Well, fine. Stand down and stand by. Stand by, really? And wait to him and then go back and doing your white supremacist bullshit? Whatever. Whatever. They even said afterwards, oh, we'll stand down. Whatever. And that's all funny. Since, I mean, who? You couldn't say the Klan? You couldn't say the Ku Klux Klan. Before you can even think of neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan has been in existence since the 1870s, found its prominence in the 1910s and 20s, and, is still in existence now. That you pandered to try to get the black vote by not only saying that you're going to make Juneteenth a holiday, yay, but that you were going to designate the Ku Klux Klan as domestic terrorists. Now, the Juneteenth thing, you know what? Every president that came down the pike and should have done that anyway. That should have made it a venerated holiday anyway. I have to be ashamed of myself that I did not know what it was until all this bullshit came about. And then when I heard, it's like, holy shit, someone who likes history and I didn't catch that. Wow. That's because we do get sort of we do encompass ourselves with our own experience and what we look for and all the little nuanced stuff and all the vast history that is out there, but you're so narrowed into what you're looking for that you will pass things. And Juneteenth, for the ending of slavery, that should have been a holiday. If Lincoln wouldn't have done it, had he not been assassinated, we sure as hell Andrew Johnson wasn't going to do that. He was a Southern sympathizer. But anyone down the line could have done that. So I get the criticism of anybody who says, well, why didn't Obama do it or anybody else do it? I agree. Why didn't they? But Trump offers it up as a pander that he's not going to do. Same thing as designating the Ku Klux Klan as a domestic terrorism. The president can't do that. Or they would have done that. It's not a matter of a single person writing down a toilet paper executive order. This is my executive order. They're all domestic terrorists. It doesn't work that way. It takes a crusade, and not just one that lasts a week, to go after an organization like the Ku Klux Klan. It takes true devotion to do that. To not only break the control that they had, but then make them shunned in society. That happened once. If you look back in history, the Klan was all but annihilated up until the turn of the 20th century. But then we stopped giving them pressure, and Jim Crow became more and more tolerated and acceptance and separate but equal and segregation and separate water fountains and all that shit. And people around the 1910s and 20s were going back to their little Southern sympathies where, incidentally, where all the Confederate statues, at least the majority of them, started cropping up, was just that fuck you to the black community that got separated and told once again that, yeah, separate but equal. No, you're not. Trump designated them, or said he was going to, in this shameless bullshit pander. And yet, at the debate, why didn't he say the Klan? In fact, why did he not continue with the pander? Because wouldn't that be a little bit more interesting? If he not only said the Ku Klux Klan, that he's dedicated, that he was going to designate them as a domestic terrorist group? Even if he can't do it. Because he's pandering. And that's bullshit. But he can still say it. It doesn't cost you anything to say bullshit. Same thing as some vandal or rioter or looter, throws a trash can into a window during the protest and it says, "Oh, Black Lives Matter," when he's clearly not Black Lives Matter at all, but doesn't cost him anything to say he is. But he's asking Chris Wallace, who? What white supremacist group? He doesn't. The Klan slipped his mind. Donald Trump was contemplating running for president in 2000. The third party group that wanted him also had the support of David Duke. And Donald Trump said then he didn't want anything to do with this political party, he didn't want anything to do with David Duke. He knew what David Duke was. In 2016, when he heard that David Duke gave him an endorsement, he feigned not knowing who David Duke was. I'm trying not to go as far as I did in the last video, which I deleted because that was 40 minutes. But trying to just see what else to make it more abbreviated. What else is there to really to say on this? Chris Wallace. Oh my God, man! What the hell? You are one of the few serious news people on Fox News, and you allowed Donald Trump to steamroll over you. Why? Is this an edict from your bosses not to try to corral him? I understand. I mean, people were on Twitter. A lot of people were going, why don't you have a mute button? Why don't you cut off his mic? There's a reason for that. For like the debate commission, they have the option of having a system where they could cut a mic off if someone is going too far or too long or is interrupting and so forth. The problem is both sides of both campaigns have to agree to it for it to be there. And Trump campaign ain't going to do that. No. For the sake of even decorum and respect or just trying to look, presidential, which no longer exists, we've established that. The Trump campaign would never, because they think this is how they win. I mean, I'm sure Trump, left that debate thinking he nailed it, him acting like a 12-year-old. It's just Chris Wallace disappointed me. That he could not hold his ground, that he could not put them in their place. There was a campaign to get Joe Rogan to do one of these debates as a moderator. I initially scoffed at this. I did. Because, unlike people who are really big Joe Rogan fans who watch his podcasts and so forth, I'm not taking anything away from this guy. I know Joe Rogan from news radio. I know Joe Rogan from Fear Factor. And his involvement with MMA fighting. I'm less involved in him in his podcasts. So I don't have as much experience with him on this. But given what I saw tonight in terms of moderating a debate, in this modern era, in this Trump era, I say, you know what? Fuck yeah. Let's have Joe Rogan do one. Because I think Joe Rogan, unlike Chris Wallace or any of these other people, are going to be deer in the headlights when Tasmanian Trump is whirling around. He will have the balls to say, shut the fuck up. Or he's not going to let you do this. And maybe he will cut a mic because he'll be on this show, perhaps. There won't be no official, debate committee, some taunting between whatever news media has the ball that day and the campaigns. Because I think a lot of lawyers get involved, a lot of money gets exchanged back and forth in order for these conditions to be put in place for both sides to agree. I don't know how. I think Joe Rogan in pretty much at the end of this, of if he was able to moderate a debate, I think Joe Rogan would be fair. Fair, meaning that he will not favor either side if they both act up. If Joe Biden says something that is completely inaccurate, I'm sure Joe Rogan will call him out. When Donald Trump blathers on with something that is completely inaccurate because he doesn't know the truth from his asshole, Joe Rogan will point out the geographic location of his asshole, and then nowhere near is that to the truth. That was all improv. So yeah, either Joe Rogan or the next debate moderator is gonna have to grow some balls and say, you know what, we're not going to have this. This is a presidential debate. You were supposed to be the president of the United States, and that's the vice president, former vice president, who's acting more presidential, just standing there smirking at you, acting like a fucking child. Joe Biden had like some number of good quips during that first segment when they were trying to get to the second segment, and trying to say what it was. Joe Biden said something to the effect of, "Well, that last one was pretty productive, wasn't it?" And Chris Wallace laughed. Trump hated that. I think no matter how much Trump is animated and blathering and doing his bullshit shtick, I think Joe Biden can ride it out and frustrate him, piss him off because he's laughing at him. And Mr. No Consequences getting laughed at. But does this move the needle? Did anyone change their minds from this debate performance? I don't know. I kind of think I don't think so. I think it's already baked into the cake where people are. But I think majority of the Americans have already decided. It's just a matter of when we're going to go out and vote. So far, over 800,000 people have voted early, either mail-in or early voting in certain states, like my state, Virginia. We started that. Around this time period, last election cycle, when there's some early votes that was offered or mail-in was offered, only 16,000 did it. Now, obviously, we have a coronavirus issue, which is why this is more prevalent to do mail-in voting. But nonetheless, the impetus to go out and vote is strong. The turnout is massive. Someone went to my job, and I was helping them out, and told me that they went and voted, and they stood there proudly in line for 3.5 hours. This is DC area, so 3.5 hours in line to vote. Which is, for me, kind of amazing, because I never really experienced a long line when I went to voting. I've been voting since '96, and go to local elementary school, and you go to vote in there, and maybe the longest for all the years I've gone and voted, maybe the longest I've waited in a line, maybe 30 minutes. I cannot conceive of a notion of it being 3.5 hours. I'll do it. Goddamn right I'll do it. Because I want the term presidential back. That's supposed to mean something. Means nothing now. It's shit now. For the thing that is representing the office of President of the United States. This is a rant. So there. Sometimes I feel like I have to specify what I do on here because this is not something where I'm gonna get monetized. So this is not something where I'm interpreting news for you because there's a lot of people out there who are true YouTubers who are making money off of this as part of their business, as part of how they're running their lives and so forth. I'm not doing that. This is more of a cathartic thing to send out my rage and frustration into the void. That's why I only have a few people that listen to this, but be that as it may. You know, while others, when they do their YouTube shows, they are looking for subs and they were looking and they're trying to interpret to you the news. Find some stray article and they'll talk about it as a big bombshell. Something that the mainstream media isn't talking about. And he or she will interpret it for you instead of allowing you to decide for yourself whether this article, this bit of news is righteous or it's full of shit, or has any impact in your life, or has any impact on the country, or any of this stuff. They will tell you how to respond and react to it, and you're supposed to accordingly, pass the Patreon buck, so forth. I don't do that. I'm ranting. I'm venting into the void. Whether you agree with it, cool. Come along with the ride. You don't? Cool. I want the term presidential back. But it's still hard to commit to the idea of voting for Biden. Because, frankly, he wasn't my first choice. He wasn't my third choice. I was giving out a little bit of hope that maybe I will decide in his favor, depending upon his vice president pick. And then he picked Kamala Harris, who was also not my first choice for VP, not my third choice for VP. So I am so tempted just to go ahead and write in Bernie Sanders. I voted for him twice in primary. Because with Joe Biden, I think the last best opportunity he could have had to run was 2016. And I absolutely and completely understand why he didn't. And do not blame him for it. For the loss of the life of his son. But Joe Biden is an old school guy. 20th century politician in a 21st century world. There's some things that he's done in his past that, let's say in the 1970s, would not be considered radical, would be considered a mainstream idea to work and compromise with some dipshits who are against busing. Because, for some compromise, maybe they'll support one of his bills, he'll support one of their bills, so therefore he will go to bat to go against busing. Or the crime bill, which again, in the 1990s, as horrible and draconic that it became, for mainstream people who, obviously, there's no 24-hour news, there's no major internet yet. So a lot of the things that were going on in the country, there was no great detail about. So people were going on assumptions and stereotypes and how the media is going these days, and media in terms of like the news or music or movies, and a certain depiction of a demographic gets hammered into your heads over and over again. And if you have no experience with people like this, who are just regular everyday folk, but since you don't have no experience saying hi to them or knowing about their life or them knowing about your life, you will buy how something as awful as a crime bill is somehow a necessity, or it is a not radical, really fucked up thing, but it's something we need because we need to go after this crime. Yeah, which turned into a great prison industry so that people could get kickbacks in order to get more people incarcerated. So incarcerate people for bullshit crimes, give them horrible sentences for light stuff, and specifically go after a demographic of these United States citizens who should not have to look over their shoulder when a cop car goes by. Let's not litigate that too much. However, it is one of those things that is a reservation for me when it comes to Joe Biden. And honestly, to go back to 2008, when he was running for president against Barack Obama, well, amongst the other ones who were in that primary, he flipped a switch with me when it came to him saying that Barack Obama was very articulate. Barack Obama is an intelligent man. Emphasis on man, not black man, man, as he is as intelligent as a white man, black man, Hispanic man, Asian, etc. Someone who's intelligent is going to be articulate. Is going to know what they're talking about and be confident in what they're talking about. So, saying that someone is articulate, making that into a compliment, kind of speaks to the contrast that he's more articulate than an average. An average what? Because that stuck with me because I remembered that when we got into this birther bullshit that he couldn't possibly be from the United States. And one of the excuses for that was because, well, Barack Obama is so learned. He is so articulate. Like, he couldn't possibly be like a American born black man because what? He's supposed to, roll in some stereotype of like cornrows and a neck tattoo? Or anything else that comes into the narrow, inexperienced mind. So that pissed me off when Biden said that. I'm glad when he became vice president, he turned that frickin' corner around because I think no one had Barack's back stronger and more sure of it than Joe Biden. So maybe finally there was, an epiphany that happened. That maybe it's just less full of shit. But still, it's just it's one of those things that you kind of have to think about. He is a 70 plus, like Trump, 70 plus year old politician who's been in politics since the 70s. He's a 20th century man in a 21st century world. As much as he can try, he's still set in his ways in certain matters. And we can't go back to the Obama era. Because I know some people are looking at Joe Biden and think they're going to support him because they're going to send him back. He's going to send us back to the glory days of the Obama era. That's not happening. I'm sorry. We, as this country, we can only progress forward. We don't progress backwards. Going backwards is regression. And going forward means we have to get past this Trump era of no decorum, no respect, acting like an asshole and get rewarded for it. We have to see what it looks like beyond this. Is it going to be better or is it going to be worse? Because it's not just Trump that is involved in this. It is also Trump. It is also his sycophantic political lackeys who, quite frankly, if it was just Trump alone doing this shit from the Oval Office, spinning in his chair and on Twitter, then he would be isolated. He wouldn't be able to do all the things that he had done or was able to do, because then there wouldn't be anyone supporting him, because there were three branches of government and there are checks and balances. However, that's broken now because too many politicians, people like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, people are just surrendering their own values, or all the things that you can mark their words on, and things that they're pretty powerful in what they believe in, that fall by the wayside when they need to protect the boss. So you get past Trump, you still have to have all these other politicians and all these other people who rode his coattails, hitched themselves to his star in order to be able to garner the support of his fan base, start acting like him and start condoning him, and just like, making excuses for him. I think it's less about people actually believing coronavirus isn't all that serious and more about the politics of it, because their boss says so, that Florida is now opening up their restaurants without restriction, while corona is kind of pretty rampant down there. They don't care about people's lives. They care about what the boss thinks. But be that as it may, since I'm nearly ranting 40 minutes again, Jesus Christ. Am I missing anything from this horrible shit show that was a presidential debate? Maybe not. Maybe it isn't enough. One person acted like a president, and that was the vice president. The other person who was a president, who is the president, killed and raped the word presidential in his behavior. So it's sprawling and bleeding on the floor, dead. And there will be no Easter for the presidential term until there is a new president. All right. I will not go further. This is a rant. And I think I've ranted enough. This is the second time I've tried doing a video of this. So I will see you again later. The ranter rants, because the urge to rant is rising. And don't you want to turn presidential back? Even Trump supporters, come on, guys, gals. Is that the leadership that you look for? That you were happy with what you just saw? Really? I mean, if you are, as a Southern transplant from California who was in Virginia, bless your hearts. You have a good night.